come stand here, full of spam, and it's selling guys.
Mike, we've already spoken to you about sharks. Now the sardines. You're on your way to fly down the coast to see whether they're on their way. There have been a few hundred or whatever on Margate Beach. How does it look for this year?
Well, I think we've had 2 really bad years. I mean, it's been really bleak to say the least. And this year, a little bit of activity 2 weeks ago on Margate Beach, but nothing fantastic. I think they netted 20 baskets. That's nothing. Normally we're looking at netting in the region of 200 to 300 baskets a time or crates a time. At the moment, there's apparently a lot of activity down south. We have seen activity, but a long way south. So we're hoping today that activity has moved a lot closer. I believe it has. And really hoping that we get some of the fish onto the coast to liven things up a bit.
Yeah, I can imagine. Mike, the sardines that came out on the beach on Margate, people say they look different from those of previous years. How can that be explained?
Well, don't make a joke of it, but when they haven't seen sardines for a couple of years, they've probably forgotten. But I believe I never saw the fish myself. I actually saw the fish out at sea, but not on the beach. It sounds to me like they were possibly juvenile sardines. They were very small, much smaller than normal, a lot thinner than normal, which suggests to me that they probably were juveniles.
Okay, now we're at the end of June. How long still can we expect sardines to arrive?
One of the things I keep saying, I've been doing this for a long time, 38 years, and when I was a youngster, I remember during the July school holidays was when the sardine run occurred. It then crept forward into June, and we've become accustomed to it coming in June. So I personally don't. I think that towards the end of June now, into the July first week or so, is the time period that to me sits best. So I'm hoping that in the next 2 weeks or so we'll see some decent action on the coast.
And Mike, just to recap, where do they come from? Where do they go?
Well, they come from the Agulhas banks. The thought at the moment is that there are 2 stocks. One stock goes around the west coast, and the other stock comes up the east coast. The east coast stock, which comes to us, is a lot smaller stock. It's not a very big stock of fish. And then they basically will extend their range as far as the temperatures will allow them to. These fish like 19.5 degrees. That's ideal for them. Once they start swimming up, if you put your hand closer to an iron, once it starts getting hot, that's where you'll stop putting your hand. Now these fish will swim up until the water is too warm for them, and that's where it'll end. That may well be here on the lower south coast, it may well be on the north coast. But then they basically move offshore into the current and back to the Agulhas banks.
Mike, then there's the other argument of people who say that the weather and other factors have got nothing to do with it. The reason why we don't see them is because foreign fishermen catch them before they reach us.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to comment on that. The fish stocks and the fishing of the sardines is controlled by a national department, DAF, Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Agriculture and Fisheries, and they monitor what is caught. They issue the permits, the licenses, and things like that. So they're the ones that are controlling the fishery. I somehow doubt that it's overseas fisheries that are.
They say that after dark, the Japanese, you can see them, the boats after dark, the Chinese and Japanese and whatever boats are there catching.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that, unfortunately. I can't comment. It's difficult for me because I don't know.
They say that the boats of the west coast, you mentioned the permits, etc., but the west coast boats are coming around and catching those that are supposed to come here.
Well, the west coast stock collapsed, I stand to be corrected, but about 12 years ago. That stock around there collapsed, the fishery collapsed, and a lot of that fishery came around to the east coast, to the Mossel Bay area, the Port Elizabeth area, and fished from here. That may well have an effect on it, but as I say, there's a national department that controls that entire fishery, and hopefully they've got their finger on the pulse.
Mike, thanks very much. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks very much.